We're wrapping up this series that we've titled Running on Empty today, and it's going to take a little bit of a turn, but I think you're going to like where this thing is going. My wife buys my cologne for me, all right? And so just let me tell you, she buys stuff that she likes me to smell. The one time I bought cologne spray, and I came out to her, and she looked at me, and she wrinkled her nose, and she's like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "It's some new cologne I bought." She goes, "I don't like it." And let me tell you something, guys. If your wife doesn't like the way you smell, you're totally on the wrong track in this life. So at Christmas, I gave it to my son-in-law. But anyway, so my wife buys my cologne, and then she bought me this good stuff, and then she told me, she goes, "Now, a little goes a long way. Little. Don't overdo it." However, I'm a guy, and that's what we do. We overdo the cologne, and I had overdone it. I mean, walking out by the street, cars going by, we're going, "What is that smell?" You know, that's how bad it was. I stepped into the gas station here in town, and the gal behind the counter, she looked at me, she said, "Honey, you smell good." It's like, you're not the first to say so. Thank you very much. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about a story in the life of Jesus where perfume is entered into the story. It's an important moment in the life of Jesus. Mary will pour out very, very expensive perfume on Jesus. It's considered the anointing of a king. It's a spectacular moment. It's filled with significance. But we're going to that because we're talking about pouring today. A lot of the songs you just sang, you sang about pouring. You didn't notice it because you didn't know that's what we'd be talking about today. So real quick, here's the premise of the sermon. We're all running on empty in one way or another. God gives us Jesus, which helps to bring up that level of that empty cup. Every so often, I got to get away. Every so often, I got to shut ministry down and go to the mountains or go to the ocean just to get my cup filled again. Because just like you all, there's moments where our cup can be dangerously low. And especially in this time right now that we're living in of economy and political frustration and the divide in this nation, that for a lot of us, we are experiencing in some part of our life a cup that is running dangerously low. God gives us Jesus. Jesus, believe it or not, fills that cup. And it's not always going to be at a top level where you just walk around life going, "Oh, peace and love, everybody." It's not going to always be like that. But even when our cups get dangerously low, because of Jesus in your life, there's still something that can be poured out. And I believe that God blesses us and brings up the level of our emptiness so that it can just in turn be poured out for someone else. I think the good things God has brought into your life are meant to be poured out for somebody else's benefit. All right, so we're going to be in John chapter 12 for this quick story of pouring, but this is important. John chapter 12, verse 1. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, where Lazarus lived, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. Don't think that wording there is by accident. It's not. This is where he lives, even though he was once dead. Here, a dinner was given in Jesus' honor. Martha served, and Lazarus was among those reclining at the table. Okay, if we took a quick snapshot of the room, here's who you'd see. Jesus is there. All his disciples are there. Lazarus is there. We don't have one word of Lazarus, and yet he becomes one of the strongest testimonies that Jesus brings us back from the dead. He is a modern day testimony at that point of look what Jesus can do when someone's in the grave. He brings them out of the grave. And so Lazarus has a testimony even though no words are recorded. And then Martha is there, and Martha, she's good. She could, boy, if you need to organize a party, you get Martha. If you need someone to serve, she's really good at serving. So she's right in her wheelhouse. Her sister is also there, though, who's named Mary. Verse 3. Then Mary took about a pint of pure nard, an expensive perfume. She poured it on Jesus' feet, and then she wiped his feet with her hair. And the whole house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. This is outrageously expensive perfume, by the way. Pure nard was more expensive than other perfumes. You would take the pure nard, water it down, spread it out, separate it, and you would sell it as perfume to women back then. So she has the original, she has the most expensive that there is. It probably was imported from India. Some scholars believe that this may have been a part of her dowry, and dowries back then, ladies, were a very important thing going into a marriage. Could it be she was pouring out the one thing that that could bring her into a marriage? We don't know. But she's pouring it out on Jesus. The other Gospels tell us it wasn't just his feet, it was also his head. He's being anointed king before he goes to the cross, and the sign over his head will say, King of the Jews. It's a very significant moment. But here she is just pouring this out. I love anytime Mary's in the story, because the painting that God uses in Scripture to show us Mary, guess what? She's always at the feet of Jesus. The chapter just before this, when Lazarus was still dead and in the tomb, Jesus shows up, she falls at his feet crying. There was this moment of a dinner at her house with her sister and Lazarus, and they were feeding the disciples, and she's sitting at the feet of Jesus while her sister was working, and her sister didn't like that too much, but Mary again is at the feet of Jesus. And then there's this moment where she's at the feet of Jesus. And by the way, another account says she's crying, she's weeping, she's drying Jesus' feet with her hair. Boy, her level of devotion, her level of worship of Jesus is really intense. And so she pours this out. Now, not everyone's going to like that. In fact, there's going to be some who think this is a waste. Verse 4, but... Oh man, whenever you see the word but, that means we're changing direction here, and that's exactly what this gospel does. But one of his disciples, Judas, who was later to betray him. By the way, that's John's way of telling you this dude is shady. Watch out for this dude. He speaks up. Why wasn't this perfume sold and money given to the poor? It is worth a year's wage. Okay, what do you make in a year? Just think about that for a moment. Could you imagine pouring everything you make in 1 year, could you imagine pouring all that out in one night's time? I can't. We don't normally have recorded words of Judas. This is the only time you have recorded words of Judas. They reveal what's going on inside of him. And here's my problem. I kind of agree with him. That bothers me. That in this story, this extravagant moment of just pouring out this expensive perfume, Judas says, what a waste. And I sound more like Judas than I do Jesus, because it feels like it's a waste. Only because we miss the significance of Mary pouring this out in this moment. Jesus comes to her rescue, by the way. He turns on the disciples and Judas. He says, you leave her alone. Jesus always defended women. You leave her alone. And then in the Matthew account, Jesus says this, Matthew chapter 26. He says, I tell you the truth, whenever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what Mary has done will also be told in memory of her. This is a memory of her. The day she poured herself out is a memory to her. You just went through communion. And communion is a memory, a memorial of when Jesus poured out his life for mankind. And you know, if you're an unbeliever, you could look at that and say, wow, Jesus, what a waste that you just pour your life out like that. But for those of us, people of faith, it was the greatest moment in history. The greatest act in all of mankind was the day that Jesus poured out his life. He separates all time. Everything before him is before Christ, everything after him. The whole calendar that we live by was divided by Christ. He's that important in this world. And we look at that moment when he poured out his life, and we're thankful for that because he did it for us. Was it extravagant? Oh, you better believe it was extravagant. That a king would die for a peasant. Unbelievably extravagant. Now, what God is doing in you is also meant to be poured out. Not your actual life, but what God pours in is meant to be poured out. Every time you're running on empty and you realize you're not completely empty, there's still something there that is getting you through this challenge. That's what God is doing. And it's meant to be poured out on others. The Apostle Paul said in 2 Timothy, "For I am already being poured out like a drink offering, and the time of my departure is near." And then it's your favorite scripture, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." Paul here begins that statement by saying, I'm being poured out. God blesses us so that we can be a blessing to others. That's what Abraham would be promised in Genesis chapter 12. God said to Abraham, "I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and I will bless your name, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse those who curse you, and all the peoples of earth will be blessed through you." What God pours in, he intends for us to pour out. When God pours in love, we pour it out. When God pours in grace and forgiveness, we pour that out on others. When God pours generosity and finance into our life, we pour that out for others. There's not a parent in the room who doesn't understand what I'm talking about. You collapse in bed at night. Oh my goodness, thank God this day is over, because I've just poured out so much on my family. But you did it because you love your children and your grandchildren. And tomorrow morning you'll get up and you'll do it all again. You'll pour yourself out again. You'd empty yourself for them. Why? Because you love them that much. Whenever a cup is bumped, you know what's inside of it, because that's what comes spilling out. Sitting at the table and somebody bumps a cup, and whatever slushes over the side onto the tabletop, that's what's inside the cup. It reveals what's in. If there's Coke in the cup, that comes spilling out. If there's water in the cup, that's what comes spilling out. If there's coffee in the cup, you bump it real good, and that's what will come spilling out. And every so often, we get bumped in this world, because it is a world that loves to just jar us and bump us hard. And what comes out in those moments is what's inside. If you're filled with bitterness, the minute somebody bumps you, even unintentionally, you're going to snap and come unglued on them. Somebody bumps you hard at store, or somebody bumps you at work, or somebody treats you badly at school, what's inside of you is what's going to spill out. You can tell when God is working in our life, because when we're bumped hard, normally we look at that and go, oh man, in the past I would have really come unglued in this moment, but you know what? I'm just going to smile and let it go. I'm going to let it go. And you can tell God is working inside of you, because that is what's revealed. You're pouring it out. And we're intended to go through this world and tip a little bit so that we're pouring into others' lives. God encourages me, so when I'm with you, you need a pastor who can tip a little bit and pour encouragement into you. God has been kind to me, and so in that kindness, I'm able to tip and give kindness to you. There's days when I'm really close to empty, and I have to tip a long way to get those kind words out, just like you. But I'm able to do it because it's what God has been pouring in. Are you tracking with me here? What God has been pouring in is intended to be poured out. Okay, so real quick, what's some practical ways you can do this here coming up just in the near future? The next 2 months are huge invitation times. We've been having this campaign about inviting others. We've titled it, This is for Everyone. If you're a guest with us today, you may not know this, but we wrote names on light bulbs and put them into that wall of people we would love to see come to Jesus Christ. And some of you who are with us here today, your names were written on that light bulb and you didn't know it. Because we want Jesus for you that bad. And so that wall represents 500 invitations that we're going to go. We're about to move into a season that's really easy to invite people to, all right? Here's the next 3 big events coming up here at the church, just real quick so you understand what we're trying to accomplish. What we're doing here is to reach people. Okay, number 1 is the upcoming sermon series, I Dare You. It's do you know anyone who's having financial troubles? This is a series for them. The whole premise of the series is, I dare you to trust God's wisdom on money. That's the whole premise. God has given out his wisdom in regards to debt and finances and giving and all that. He's given his wisdom on that. And we're going to look at just God's wisdom and see if there's not an opportunity for our own finances to be blessed. And so the series is titled, I Dare You. The second thing coming up is 10,000 Reasons. We're closing down the campaign aspect of 10,000. For 3 years, we've been raising funds, capital funds here, and we titled it 10,000 Reasons because there's 10,000 people in Lincoln who do not know Jesus, and we're trying to reach out to them. Even though our commitment to the 10,000 Reasons continues, the campaign itself comes to an end. And the Gazzardos, the third Sunday, November 20th, in the evening, right here in this room, they're going to feed us a free Gazzardos dinner. We're very excited about that, appreciate that a lot. And we're going to celebrate. We're going to have one last big offering for the campaign. We're going to close that thing down. The entertainment during the dinner is the Bluegrass Band, which I'm very excited about because I'm in it. And want you to come and just have a great evening. It'll be fun. It'll be good food. And then we'll finally hear the total of that campaign. Anyone who's new, by the way, you don't have to give. You don't have to give to come to the dinner. Or you can jump in at the last minute and help us extend our goal. That would be awesome, but you don't have to. All of that's coming up on November 20th. Then we move into Christmas season, and Christmas season is such an easy time to invite people. Let me tell you about Hometown Christmas. Next Sunday, you get your opportunity to finally sign up on one of the teams here at Lincoln Christian Church to help pull off Hometown Christmas. We are going to street level in Lincoln with a free event for Lincoln. Now, listen, we have Santa, a chance for the families of Lincoln to bring their kids and let them have a picture taken with Santa, all provided by us. Everything's free that night. The little Christmas train that runs around the mall, we're bringing it here to run around the streets. We have horse-drawn chariots, cookies, cocoa, just all of this is going to be there. And people getting invitations to our Christmas series here at the church. All of that is happening. And I know some people have already said, hey, I really don't like the idea of a church doing the Santa thing. I hear your heart on that. I know how much you love Jesus. And you would love to put up a big manger scene and let the community come to Jesus that way. But guess what? They don't come that way. And so we're going right down to street level. There will be carolers in traditional garb and we're going to have this amazing, but the opportunity is to reach people and invite them into the church where they will hear about Jesus. And on Christmas Eve, they will see the nativity. And they're going to get an opportunity to have all that. But this is a moment where we get down to street level and mingle with the people of Lincoln City. And I'm excited to have you be a part of that. Next Sunday, you'll get a chance to sign up for what's going on there. All of this is just a chance to, by the way, to be poured out. You know what a water wheel is? You probably know what a water wheel is. Do you remember the old, if you've been to any of the old mills, the mills used to turn and be operated by a water wheel. The water would come in at the top of the wheel, would turn the wheel, and then would dump out at the bottom. That's what we do. Blessings in our life come to us from on high. They turn our life, and then they're poured out at the bottom. What is the purpose of I'm a Little Teapot? You know the song? I'll pull you up here if you say you don't know the song. Now, you better shake your head, yes, you know the song. All right. I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle. Here is my spout. You know the song? When I get all steamed up, hear me shout, just tip me over and what? Pour me out. Isn't the whole premise of the little teapot to be poured out? That's You and I. I was dared, by the way, to do that little song today, and so I just won $10. Anyway. Parents know what it means to be poured out. A water wheel teaches us the importance of being poured out. It's what turns our lives. I'm a little teapot. Giving blood. When I give blood, I just have this overwhelming feeling that the blood I'm giving, the pouring out of my blood, is going to save a life. In fact, in those moments, you could almost stop and just realize that this is, my blood is going to save someone. And what a huge money. And it's interesting because what I pour out, God replenishes. Hopefully, that's the way it's supposed to work. You pour it out, knowing that God will replenish. What you pour out for Jesus, He's going to refill. I know you feel like you're running on empty right now. I know that. Many of us do. But God is at work. And you can trust Him today. You just trust Him that He's going to fill that cup back up. Maybe there's somebody here today and you're ready. You know what? I've heard enough about Jesus. I've heard enough about His death for me. I've heard enough. I'm ready to take a step and commit to Him. If that's you today, I'm going to ask you to step out and just come join me. I'm going to sit right over here in this front row and just come down and join me, and we'll get that process started. For some of you, it's just standing in front of all of us saying, I believe. For some of us, we might be ready for baptism.